From a handshake deal on the biggest spread in Montana to a family that's somehow always one bad season away from losing everything, the Dutton Ranch is the strangest kind of rich. On paper, John Dutton is one of the wealthiest men in America. In his checking account, he's a man sweating payroll, and that contradiction isn't a writing flaw. It's the most accurate thing on the entire show. So today we're doing something the series never sits still long enough to do. We're going to build the real budget. What would it actually cost in real dollars to buy and run a ranch the size of the Yellowstone? I've done the math against real cattle economics, real Montana land values, and real ranch payroll, and I'll tell you right now, the final number explains the entire plot of this show better than any character ever does. We're going line by line. The land, the taxes, the cattle, the men, the iron. And then the part that breaks everyone, the revenue, and how little of it there actually is. Subscribe before we start, because the number at the bottom of this page is going to change how you watch every episode. Let's start with the dirt. Line 1, buying the land. Before you run a single cow, you have to own the ground. And this is where the number stops making sense to a normal human being. The Dutton Ranch is portrayed as somewhere around 700,000 acres. Now, average Montana grazing land runs a bit under $1,000 an acre. Do that multiplication and you're already past $600 million for the dirt alone at the cheap rate. But here's the part that makes it worse. The Dutton Ranch isn't average grazing land. It sits in Paradise Valley, up against Yellowstone National Park, some of the most scenically valuable, most sought-after land in the entire American West. That kind of amenity land doesn't sell at grazing prices. It sells at trophy prices, many times higher, because every hedge fund, billionaire, and tech founder in the country wants a piece of exactly that view, and they'll pay tens of thousands of dollars an acre to get it. We've watched real ranches near Yellowstone sell for numbers that would make a working cattleman laugh and then cry. Realistically, the land value of the Yellowstone Ranch isn't hundreds of millions, it's billions, somewhere between $2 and $5 billion sitting there as grass. Verdict on line 1, the Duttons are sitting on a $2 to $5 billion asset before they've earned a single dollar. Hold that number in your head because everything wrong with their life flows from it. And the first thing it does is generate a bill. Line 2, the taxes. Own a multi-billion-dollar asset and your first thought should be the property tax because a normal tax bill on land worth billions would bankrupt any working ranch in a single year. This is the trap people assume the Duttons are caught in. But here's where reality actually throws them a rope, and it's worth understanding. Montana, like most western states, doesn't tax working agricultural land at its full market value. It taxes it on its productive value, what it can actually earn running cattle, which is dramatically lower. So the Duttons aren't paying tax on a $5 billion view. They're paying tax on the far smaller number the land earns as a cattle operation. That's the only reason a ranch like this can exist at all. If it were taxed at what it's truly worth, no family on earth could hold it. But that rope has a knot in it, and the knot is the whole show. The tax break only survives as long as the land stays a working ranch. The moment it's sold, developed, or valued as what a developer would pay, the real number wakes up. So the Duttons are legally trapped into ranching forever. Not because they love it, though they do, but because ranching is the only thing keeping the taxman off the full value. Verdict on line 2. Reality hands them a break that keeps them alive and chains them to the plow at the same time, which means they have to actually run cattle. So let's price the cattle. Line 3. The herd. Here's what the show never shows you. The cattle are not where the money is. They're where the money goes. And to understand why, you have to understand grass. In the arid West, land doesn't feed cattle the way a green Midwest pasture does. Montana range is thin, and depending on the country, it can take anywhere from 10 to 30 acres or more to feed a single cow-calf pair for a year. A lot of those 700,000 acres are mountain, timber, and rock that can't graze anything at all. So the real working herd on a ranch like this isn't a number to the moon. Realistically, it lands in the low thousands of head, maybe 5,000, give or take, once you subtract everything a cow can't eat off of. But even a herd in the low thousands turns into a brutal number fast, because every single cow-calf pair costs real money every year just to exist. Run the current figures and it lands somewhere around $1,000 a head annually to keep a cow fed, bred, vaccinated, and alive. And feed alone is more than half of that. Multiply $1,000 by 5,000 head, and the cattle operation is burning roughly $5 million a year before anyone's been paid and before a single calf is sold. And that's just the running cost. Actually buying the breeding herd is a separate fortune on top. Bred cows have been selling for $3,000 and up in today's market. So restocking a herd this size is a number with 8 digits in it. Verdict on line 3. The herd is a $5 million a year mouth that eats first and pays later, and it can't feed itself. Which brings us to the men. Line 4. The bunkhouse. The show sells you the ranch hands as loyalty, men who work for a bed, a meal, and a brand. And that's the biggest financial fantasy in the whole series, because in the real world, those men are a payroll, and it's a heavy one. A real ranch hand in Montana earns somewhere in the range of $30,000 to $45,000 a year, and a skilled foreman like Rip earns considerably more. A good ranch manager can pull well into 6 figures because he's running a multi-million-dollar operation and everyone knows it. A working ranch this size doesn't run on a handful of cowboys. It needs a real standing crew year-round, and then it needs even more hands at the crunch points. Branding, calving season, and haying when the work doesn't wait for anybody. Put 15 to 30 people on the books across the year, and you're looking at somewhere around $500,000 to $1 million a year in wages alone. And here's the part the show actually gets right about the cost, even while it hides it. These men are housed and fed on the ranch. That bunkhouse, those meals cooked 3 times a day, that's not charity, that's compensation, and it costs real money to provide. Feeding and housing a crew is a line item, not a favor. Verdict on line 4, the loyalty the show romanticizes is, in dollars, close to $1 million a year in labor and keep. The brand doesn't lower the wage bill. It just hides it in the walls of the bunkhouse. And all those men need equipment. Line 5, the iron. Nobody puts this in the fantasy, but a ranch is a heavy industry operation, and heavy industry is expensive. Trucks, and not one, a fleet. Tractors, hay balers, stock trailers, ATVs, the machinery to cut and bale and haul feed across an operation the size of a small country. A single new tractor can run 6 figures. Then the fuel to move all of it. The endless repair of everything that breaks, the fencing that runs for hundreds of miles and rots and falls and gets fixed forever, the vet bills, the fertilizer, the hay you have to buy in a bad year when your own grass doesn't cut it. This is the invisible line item that quietly runs into the millions every year, and it never stops. There's no season where the machinery is free. A ranch doesn't have an off switch. It has a maintenance bill that arrives whether the cattle made money or not. Verdict on line 5, call it several million more a year just to keep the operation physically running. And I haven't even counted the buildings. The main house, the barns, the bunkhouse, the miles of road, the wells and water systems, all of it aging, all of it needing repair, none of it optional on a ranch that has to function through a Montana winter. But before we total it up, there's one more cost the show is secretly built around, and it's the one that actually kills real ranches. Line 6, the death tax. This is the big one, and it's the reason the whole series has a clock on it. When the owner of a multi-billion-dollar asset dies, the federal estate tax comes due, and the top rate is 40% of everything above the exemption. Now do that math on a ranch worth $2 to $5 billion. The tax bill when John Dutton dies could run into the hundreds of millions, sometimes close to $1 billion, payable in cash, not long after the funeral. And here's the trap that has destroyed more real family ranches than any drought ever did. The Duttons don't have that cash. Nobody land rich and cash poor does. So when the patriarch dies, the family is handed a bill they can only pay one way, by selling the land. The very thing they spent 100 years protecting has to be carved up and sold off just to pay the government for the privilege of inheriting it. This is real. It happens to real ranching families constantly, and it's the single biggest reason big family operations get broken into pieces. Verdict on line 6: the most dangerous enemy the Duttons have isn't a developer or a corporation. It's the actuarial table. Every season John Dutton survives is a season the family postpones a tax bill that could end them. Now let's total it up. The total burn. So put the whole annual budget on one page. Around $5 million a year to feed and run the herd. Close to $1 million in wages. Several million more in equipment, fuel, repairs, and bought hay in a dry year. Add the smaller 1,000 cuts, insurance, property tax, professional fees, the endless bleeding of a business this size. Realistically, running the Yellowstone Ranch costs somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 million a year, every year, just to open the gate. And that's before we talk about what it actually earns, which is the cruelest part of the whole story. Because here's the revenue. The revenue. A cow-calf operation makes money exactly one way. It sells calves in the fall. And even right now, in a historic cattle market where calf prices have hit record highs, the margin on each animal is thin. A weaned calf might sell for a couple $1,000s, but you spent most of that raising it, so the actual profit per head is a sliver. And in a bad year, drought or a sick herd or a market dip, that sliver flips negative and the whole operation loses money on every animal it sells. So run it out. 5,000 head, a good calf crop, the best cattle prices in a decade. And the ranch might clear a profit measured in the low millions in a genuinely great year. But now picture the bad year, the one the West gets more and more of. Drought hits, the grass doesn't come, and now you're buying hay at $200–300 a ton to keep the herd alive, a cost that can run into the millions all by itself. Your feed bill explodes at the exact moment your calves weigh less and sell for less. In a real drought year, a ranch this size doesn't just make less money. It loses millions, and it can't fire the land or lay off the winter. The good years are thin. The bad years are a wound. Now hold all of that against an asset worth $2 to $5 billion. The Dutton Ranch, in its best year, earns a return on its own value of well under 1%. You could take what that ranch is worth, put it in the most boring index fund in America, earn 8 or 9% while sleeping, and out-earn 100 years of Dutton cattle in a single afternoon, without ever pulling on a boot. Verdict on the revenue. The single most valuable asset in the state is one of the worst investments in the state. And now you understand the entire show. So, what does it actually cost to run the Dutton Ranch? Here's the real answer. It costs somewhere around $10 million a year to operate, it's worth billions to own, and it earns almost nothing on that fortune. Which means the Duttons are exactly what the show keeps telling you they are, and you keep not quite believing. Land rich beyond imagination, cash poor to the point of desperation, sitting on a mountain of wealth they can't spend without destroying the one thing that lets them keep it. That's not a plot hole. That's the plot. Every developer circling that land, every corporation with a briefcase, every offer John Dutton spits on, they're all just reactions to one financial fact. The Duttons are guarding a treasure that pays them almost nothing, that costs a fortune to hold, and that the whole world can see is worth more sold than kept. John Dutton isn't fighting to protect a business. The business barely works. He's fighting to protect a way of life that the math says he should have sold 2 generations ago. And the reason you root for him anyway is that he already knows the number, and he's choosing the land over the money every single time. So tell me below, if that ranch landed in your lap tomorrow, a $1 billion asset that costs $10 million a year and pays you almost nothing, would you fight like John to keep it, or would you take the money and never look back? Be honest. I know what I'd like to think I'd do. I'm not sure I believe myself. I'll see you out there.